I'm going to introduce June Bellamy. She's a whistleblower. We're talking about promises, pitfalls, and precautions of whistleblowing. She defines herself as a contemplative activist. The trauma experience as a protected Samsung whistleblower in 2017 resulted in an unexpected self-taught PhD in whistleblowing, now 5 years in the making. The intention is to share, warn, and inform global employees in any human working environment of the promises, pitfalls, preventions, and tangible ways to better protect oneself in even the simplest, most unaware scenarios. June, I'm going to hand it over to you. We were talking a little bit earlier on about how whistleblowers need to be celebrated in this world.
Thank you, Jane. Can I just get a thumbs up if you can see me and hear me? Thank you, lovely. Yes, so thank you, Jane. Thank you very much to the South African Fraud Prevention Service for the invite. I'm notably very humbled for you giving this corporate whistleblower platform to speak and to be heard. So I thank you again. And I'm very happy to meet everyone in the summit. So I'm going to start with a disclaimer first, being that, and you'll notice me just checking in on my notes because with legal proceedings, I need to be factually correct. All I share today is from my lived experience over the past 5 years as a Samsung whistleblower. All I share is in the public's interest, notably Samsung's 300,000 global employees, in addition to any person thinking about whistleblowing in any space in the future. All I share today is under my right to freedom of speech, and all I share has evidence in place. So I've been listening to everyone here today with great interest and fascination in an arena I never thought I would find myself in. And the topics of promises, pitfalls, and precautions for whistleblowers will be speaking to problems and preventative measures as well for both us and business. Businesses who are truly invested in curbing their corruption and enforcing better protection for us. So it's important to see today's framing, the topics that you've had, the new world of collaboration, the evolving fraud, and just as importantly, you're still cognizant and mindful of old world trends, because I think this is what I experienced a lot of. So over the next 20 minutes, the component you need to know about me, who I am in the space, is that I am a Samsung whistleblower. My voice has been drowned out by Author state capture, and understandably so. So I've primarily been in the background, assisting other SOE whistleblowers and civil society in South Africa. So I'll be taking the next 5 minutes just to give you some very high-level context of June and some pertinent information about Samsung, knowing full well that their auditors are certified fraud examiners and forensic practitioners who could very well be here with us today. So I say shout out to Samsung if you're watching. You know I always tag you, and you know I always invite you to these events. And serendipitously, there was an announcement made on the 26th of April, which I'm sharing with you later, that highlights the importance of having the right kind of leadership who will ensure that the promises which businesses make to employees, notably their whistleblowers, are upheld. You'll see I'm also sharing a few firsts with you all today. So being here for me is what I consider to be a safe space. And this is very, very important to me. So I'll be leaving a couple of crumbs for you to follow throughout before sharing why last month's announcement is so poignant. So feel free to pick them up. I also enjoy answering questions, please. So especially the things you don't think you can ask whistleblowers or have never been able to ask a whistleblower, please send them through and I'll see what I can answer for you. And very importantly for me, please reach out and connect with me afterwards. I promise we don't bite. So let me start my share. Okay. Everybody able to see the PowerPoint? I can just get a thumbs up from someone.
Hi, June. We can see you perfectly. Your slides are
Great.
loaded.
Thanks very much. Okay, so the promises, pitfalls for whistleblowers. I started at Samsung February 2013. I changed departments after 3.5 years when mine was closed. I whistle blew 1st of June in 2017 when my identity was leaked in under 2 weeks. I was dismissed a year later on June the 6th, 2018. So my public protests began in 2017, sorry, in 2020. But before that, I was looking at motivators for me. I was looking around, and luckily for me, I've grown up in a country where we have two of the most heroic leaders, the world has ever known. And then I was also looking around, throughout my life. I remember seeing the Erin Brockovich movie, and that just blew me away. I was tracking the hashtag #MeToo movement, which resurged, popped up again after its 2006 original start. And when I saw Oprah making that statement, what I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. I just knew what I had to do. So I started looking around, who were whistleblowers, where were they? I found Susan Fowler, and then I saw that her single blog post had managed to remove the CEO of Uber. And I think that's what it was for me. I thought, if these women have done it, then I must do it. And so I did. So, as I said earlier, I started at Samsung 2013, Whistleblower 2017. I was dismissed a year later, 2018. My public protests began in November 2020, just after my birthday. I had to borrow my mom's car to get to their offices, as mine had been repossessed. And I was on my own with just my sign and my whistle. And it was a handwritten one, very cathartic and invigorating, I must say. I highly recommend it if you haven't done a protest yet. And then I had another major mental breakdown, one of many I'd been experiencing. And you'll notice the difference. There's nearly a year between I got back out there. And when I did go back out there, I had a more professional approach with printed signs now. And on the back of these posters, I have those 3 sayings of Tutu, Madiba, and Oprah, just to keep me company, and to remind me in part why I'm doing this. And these protest posters, as I call them, are what I term my freedom fuel. I have freedom of speech, and that's something that they can't take away from me. So this next one that I'm sharing I'll be uploading this week. And, while some people might be looking at this, having a little bit of a laugh, it's a little bit of a joke, I really need to let you know in all seriousness that this scenario is my current reality. This is my lived experience. I have been humbled down to my core through this experience, and I know how demeaning it is to not be able to afford other crucial sundries which women need on a monthly basis. The diabolical consequences of whistleblowing are not our doing, but they are very, very real. And I have no shame in sharing this reality with you. They unfold in so many ways, more than anybody warns you about. You know, you're becoming unemployable. I experienced PTSD, which was a massive shock for me. I've always been one of the strongest women I know. I was ostracized by work colleagues, friends, and yes, even some family. You will be decimated if you go down this road unless you are financially, if you are independently wealthy. I've experienced suicidal ideations for the first time in my life. Again, an absolute shock to me. And I've even received some training on how to detect and avoid assassination attempts. And I use that word assassination because it's used to describe an important person. And whistleblowers are important. We are outliers in a sense, in the minority. Not many do what we have done. And so our stories need to be more than just me trying to get a roll of toilet paper. Okay, so let's lighten it up a little bit. So as you see in my socials, I'm always tagging and inviting Samsung to join these summits in the hopes that they will, adjust how they treat their whistleblowers. So for some context, I have 2 cases against Samsung, one each in the Labour and Human Rights Court. There are an additional 2 cases currently against Samsung brought by another defendant in the civil and criminal courts. The latter, Samsung attorneys are trying very hard after the Hawks investigated to have them moved to commercial crimes. But a beautiful thing has happened. Over the past 5 years, more victims have reached out to me and have now become my witnesses and or co-whistleblowers. And pay attention to this piece of information. The key persons in all 4 of these cases are the same. I'm going to say that again. The key persons in all 4 of these cases are the same. So today, for the first time, I'm publicly highlighting one name in particular, which is already mentioned in my socials, and that is Sun Yun, the ex-president of Samsung Africa. And you see him here, we have one CEO, one SA health minister, and one part-owned state enterprise. These are the crumbs. So I leave Samsung. I lodged my first case, and a friend of mine in the UK sends me this article. This gentleman's protest started in 2007, and it was dragged out. The trauma of these families was dragged out for 12 years by Samsung before they agreed to a settlement in 2018, November 2018. So this came out just after I left Samsung, with only an apology, no admittance of guilt. There's even been a movie made about it. It was crowdfunded. And when it came out in 2014, interestingly, on the release date, many theatres pulled it at the last minute, but you can find it online. And then at the same time in 2018, these headlines did make it here to South Africa. President of South Korea is convicted and jailed for 24 years for corruption involving, in part, Samsung, the de facto heir. And Samsung, I don't know if any of you know, has a global marketing company by the name of Shell. So the president gets jailed. She's spent 5 years in jail. She was recently released. She's 70 with health concerns. And it took longer to get the Samsung heir into jail. She went in 2018, but for the same scandal, he went in 2021. And he's already out on parole now. So one of the things I started to do is I started to reach out to find other whistleblowers in South Africa after Googling to find any. We formed a small support group, and I saw that most of them were state capture whistleblowers. And I must be honest, I've never heard this term before. I have an aversion to politics. I avoid the newspapers, and I prefer to listen to my own music. If I'm at home or the car, I don't listen to the radio often. And then another headline popped up, which I hadn't seen before. This gentleman, Mr. Kim Yong-hee, 25 years he's been protesting against Samsung. He started in 1995 when he was dismissed after trying to start unions. And in 2019, at the age of 61, he started his final protest. He spent time up the Seoul Tower, and this was a massive finding for me and a massive inspiration to me. I couldn't believe that somebody out there had been protesting against Samsung for 25 years. So it was in May of 2020 that Samsung reached out finally, and he came down to have discussions with him around the unions. I don't know exactly what's happening around that topic to date, but I do know that they would pass food and clothes up to him on a bucket, his supporters, rechargeable cell phone batteries, and the same was happening with his excrement. And that was for 300 days that he was in that scenario. And then I remember somebody saying, I'm trying to find something on Google, but there's nothing there. And they said, have you tried page 9? So I thought, in preparation for this talk, let me, try alternative pages. And I found this very interesting one, because if we look, we have one president, one Samsung Air, one health minister, and all of these people were involved in their scandal over there. And I thought, wow, they've had like a little bit of a mini state capture happening over there. The difference being is that you can see their judiciary works much faster, and they have actually put a lot of people into jail. And so we're going to leave that Samsung issue behind and leave it right there. The promises and pitfalls and protections for whistleblowers, there's really only one promise that matters. We naively believe that businesses will adhere to and implement and enforce all of our company policies fairly and equally. And it was a whistleblower that said, we assume that the businesses will adhere to these policies. And that was it in a nutshell, is that you don't, that they don't. I drank the Samsung Kool-Aid. I was the digital trainer. Sorry, they used to diligently train us year on year about their zero tolerance policies. I was proud to work there. I used to do their onboarding training for them, and I used to share these amazing stories with them. Did you know that Samsung started as selling dried fish and veg? But what's important here around these policies is that the policies are your most important promise. If the policies and the principles were adhered to, then we would retain our employment, the unethical persons would be removed from the firm, and there would be no further detriment or damage done to the company or employees. It's as simple as that. When you look at the pitfalls, now these have been mentioned time and time again. The financial detriment, mental health is destroyed, and has led to suicide, some of our whistleblowers here in South Africa. Your physical health literally in jeopardy because of the assassinations. And why is it not changing? Because it begins and ends with the leadership. There's no accountability or legal ramifications for unethical leaders. We all know that, we've all seen it. And another key reason is that business decisions are made in favor of profit over people. When I saw this headline, I ran a quick poll on my LinkedIn page. Very small sample size, yes, I know, but there are results there nonetheless. And when asking the question, would you hire an unethical delinquent director to lead your business, being protected by an NDA from their previous employees, I was actually shocked to see that 11% said yes, they would. Because if we don't change the type of leadership that we have at the moment, one that doesn't enforce their company policies, then we are going to perpetuate the cycle of just moving delinquent directors and unethical directors between companies. And this is why Judy Mayeni's case was so vital for us. Because again, you know, there's no list for delinquent directors. And this I found when I went to the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation, Arbitration, go to the CCMA. And this is also, as a whistleblower, my first legal interaction with them. And they're saying is not the right word to say. They're advising, you know, if I went to trial, you'll more than likely be bankrupted. If I was found guilty, I would be placed on a poor performance list. This list has my ID number on it, so you will never work again. And my first question to them was, well, where's the list for the companies who don't protect the whistleblowers? And there isn't one. But this is something that we're working on. So fear not, the whistleblowers, civil society, various legal minds, and human rights, the Human Rights Commission has joined us. We have got a lot of ideas on this, and we're working on this, and we are starting to implement the changes. What we need is support from big business, funding. And David Pegley, I mean, I was absolutely floored this morning when you are funded by 4 big banks there. So I say today to the banks, after the Zondo Commission and all of their findings around state-owned enterprises being captured, where are the banks stepping up to help and support? The Whistleblower House was launched in February of this year. It's a non-profit, and they are in need of funding. So there's a beautiful opportunity here for you to take a look at your corporate citizen, the word in now, I've lost it, your social responsibility, your corporate social responsibility. Re-look at that, and we're asking you to start investing and putting some money into the Whistleblower House. This says to us, in a sense, that yes, we are concerned about whistleblowers. And if we drop the ball, the Whistleblower House will be able to support them financially. So how does it thrive? The cronyism, the nepotism, and the cadre employment is by far the most common factor. And I saw it repeatedly in Samsung. Once you've got that type of leadership in place, they tempt you with various things like the cash, and the greed just takes over. Once you've got that whole playground to play in, it's very difficult to get out of that. And the common humanity of it all, you know, I have seen some diabolical scenarios where people have, with the rights that they have, done terrible things to me, lied, the usual things. But I have an understanding that they are literally trying to protect themselves, their own jobs, because they know, and they'd seen it before at Samsung, that the company does not adhere to its internal policies. And again, that promise of your policies, having those policies in place, if you're not prepared to follow them, there will never be any protection for any whistleblower in that environment. But now there is some good news that we can add to this whole scenario. As of March this year, the Department of Employment and Labour has gazetted the Code of Good Practice on the prevention and elimination of harassment in the workplace. What's important here, very important here, all forms of harassment, which we have, the sexual harassment, gender-based harassment, bullying, and that is crucial for us whistleblowers, bullying must be eliminated. And the ways they are describing it, if they include physical abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse. This is a game changer for us now that this is gazetted. And also, it includes the use of physical force or power, threatened or actual. This is a massive game changer for us. So it's something to look into because as it's gazetted, companies, you will now have to train your staff on these bullying tactics. And I'm working with somebody who is doing exactly this and well known and well respected in the industry. So feel free to reach out. We'll put you in touch because this is a space that I can now step into and start to earn an income as well. Your precautions, finally, go and read your company policies. The company policies will save you time and time again because, ironically, a lot of the senior management don't know their own policies. And this is where I garnered a lot of my evidence with them doing things that they weren't even aware of that they were doing incorrectly. If you find yourself in a meeting, make your own recording, especially if it's an agreed to meeting, dismissal especially, make your own recording. If you ask them for it, you won't ever see it. And another little tip, if you ever leave and go out on a bathroom break, leave your recording on. Don't stop it. Just leave it on the table, exit, come back. Because I have got some pearlers on my recording that Samsung doesn't have because they stopped theirs. So a nice little tip for you to use if you want. That's the other thing. Let them talk. Unfortunately, we do still have unhealthy narcissism, ego, and arrogance in the C and the D suites in the leadership. And there is one truth that I know: the longer you let them talk, the more they will hang themselves. Again, I've garnered a lot of evidence in this manner, all coming out of directives. For the new age whistleblowers, there's an app that you can use. This tool wasn't available when I was whistleblowing, but it allows you to make notes on a daily basis. You can send evidence to yourself, all this type of thing. And more importantly, it creates a timeline for you. So if things do start going pear-shaped, you don't have to go back and relive it all the time and rehash and build up your timeline. And very, very, very importantly, don't do it alone. I have been, for the most part, doing this on my own, as I'm a little bit different in the sense that I didn't have family support. I'm single. There was no financial, person stepping in to help that. But also there was nobody to go home to, at the end of the day and, talk this out and discuss, with somebody. So I was living in the state of fight and appease on a daily basis. And then coming home and, there's nobody to have, in a sense, a little bit of talk therapy. So for businesses, I'm asking the following, and this is where I think the fraud component and the SAFPS and the ICFP, Institute of Commercial Forensic Practitioners, come into play in a very, very big way. You need to change the way you vet in your C and D suites appointments, unless you're appointing them for specific reasons. And you need to clean your current house. If you're serious about making changes, please engage with us. Reach out to us. There are a myriad of different things to do, which will help you clean the house in such a way that your staff can speak out having a sense of safe space. The next two issues over here: take the temperature of your business before you start an audit. These two items here are new. These are ideas that I've created out of necessity to generate business for myself and an income. And if you're interested in what these are and how you can utilize us, please just reach out to me. Because if you don't, and this is the announcement that was made last month, you might find yourself in a position where, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Sun Yoon has now been appointed as a non-executive Director of Samsung Africa. Well, sorry, of Telkom. I know Telkom, you were here earlier. I don't know if you're still on the call. Perhaps you'd like to have a discussion and a conversation with me. Final announcement for me, very important. I'm nervous excitement around this. I work with Whistleblowers of America, also non-profit, so there's no money being paid there. But they have launched my GoFundMe page, which will go live this week. When I see this picture, I often think of a joke. 3 whistleblowers walk into a bar. Terry Crawford Brown there, the Armsdale whistleblower, Cynthia Stimple, the SAA whistleblower, and myself getting together. This was back in 2019. So again, thank you very, very much for this time. I have experienced some overwhelm while going through this talk. But it's been very, very liberating for me and very, very important that businesses like yourselves give us the platforms and embrace us and protect us. Over to you, Jane.
And I must say, I doff my cap to you. I can't imagine how frightening it must be to do something like that. But I should imagine as well, as difficult as it is, the rewards priceless.
Very much so. And if I can point out, there's doom and gloom in that, but I'll tell you one of the best positives that's come out of this. And again, literally, this is my life. This is a summons from Standard Bank coming after my vehicle again, because this is the positive that happened. They got my vehicle, but what I've managed to do, because I'm trying to tackle this from a very different angle. Standard Bank and SA Home Loans both bully you and take you to high court. That is not the process. They're supposed to take you to a magistrate court. So I've had phenomenal assistance with so many different people, particularly a credit advisor, who has given me, precedents that's out there, and I've been using it to, as I say, to try and see how I can utilize the current law in assisting whistleblowers until we get it changed. So so Standard Bank and SA Home Loans both rescinded their cases against me. So after 5 years of doing this, a great positive for me is that I've managed to still retain my small flat and my vehicle. But again, as I say, got this today, and the journey continues.
All right, I've got a question for you. Besides living by same rules for all company policies, which I entirely, what practical initiatives do you believe could help to create that safe space in an organization, breaking the fear and building trust for potential whistleblowers? Any out-of-the-box insights for us?
So yes, this is one of the areas, the other part of me, today was the whistleblower side, but the other thing that I do, I have got my postgrad in mindfulness-based interventions. I fully believe we're trying to insert it into education. If you have a look around at the bullying going on in education, these horrific videos going on out there, we need to raise more compassionate children in the hopes that by the time they get to be senior leaderships, in the senior leadership positions, they have got a deeper sense of compassion in them. So practical means or practical ways, it has to come from leadership. Leadership, if you are serious about making the changes, you have to allow us into the space to do not only ethics training, but mindful-based training. Things where you seriously look towards yourself and see, am I harming the staff? Am I protecting the business? And those difficult choices need to be made by leadership. So I think what the current leadership that we have now, they need to practically, if the business is willing, to step in, and as I said earlier, let's try and clean our own house first and see what happens there. Because if you have that top leadership who is open, compassionate, then your business will thrive and people will speak out, and it will help curb your corruption.
Another question for you: to go through this journey, what gave you the courage, or where are you drawing your strength from?
I'll tell you hands down, everybody else that has gone before me. You know, that first slide, you know, Oprah's comments, Alison Buerta, let me just tell you, I am so humbled to be on the summit where you are a speaker, because I've also tracked your journey. So the courage and the resilience, it's, you know, it comes from within. It comes from, I have a fantastic role model as a mother, sorry, as a mom, my mom. We nearly lost her recently from COVID, just last month. So your resilience comes from the people that you surround yourself with, but also as you go through life, you know, what additional learnings are you doing for yourself? How are you, you know, stepping into new spaces with different education? You know, I myself, I have what I call a bullish passion, but some people see it as aggressive. So, you know, you need to work on yourself. And again, you know, well, not again, but simple things like the creatives, you know, what's happening to the creatives with their suicide rate of recent is horrific. The creatives have been a phenomenal inspiration and source of motivation for me. Music, movies, I love a good meme. You know, when you're in those spaces, when you just can't get out of bed, those are the things that will comfort you. You know, the laughter of, you know, certain radio stations, which I've tagged on my posts. All of these things is what makes you get up and do it all again the next day.
That's why the money should be going to them, not a flagpole, right? One last question to you. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they go about this? How do they become a whistleblower? How do they find out how to protect themselves?
Okay, so you'll find me on my socials under I am June Bellamy. I'll be sharing the information with the SAFPS here. So on my socials, I am June Bellamy. You'll find me on LinkedIn under my name, June Bellamy. So please just reach out, pop me a note, and get in contact with me. And then, you know, where I can't assist because I'm still on the recovery journey myself, the Whistleblower House. Have a Google. The Whistleblower House is up and running. They are still got a baby, 3 months old, but reach out to them because they do have capacity to start helping people. And I am one of the beneficiaries now, as of this year, after they're open. For the first time, I'm getting some psychological support and other medical support that I've been missing. So Whistleblower House, and you can reach out to myself on socials.
June, I know it was hard for you at certain points, but thank you very much for sharing your time with us, June Bellamy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.